All right, let's dive right into this explainer. If you've ever watched a physics video and just marveled at the elegant math underlying our physical universe, well, prepare to experience that exact same sense of awe, but for human language. We're going to explore the hidden mechanics of systemic functional linguistics, or SFL. Basically, we're translating abstract linguistic theory into concrete geometric structures. Think of it as the linguistic physics of how we build meaning, specifically below the clause level.
To do this, we'll take a zoom-in microscope approach. We're covering 5 main areas today: meaning below the clause, the anatomy of nominal groups, experiential versus logical structure, the verbal group engine, and finally, the recursive tense system. Let's get into it.
Part 1. Meaning below the clause, shifting states.
So, we have to establish the fundamental physics of this system first. Notice the massive contrast in structural density here. At the macro level of the clause, meanings run in 3 totally separate structural lines: the ideational, the interpersonal, and the textual. But as we zoom in our microscope and look below the clause at the group level, the laws of linguistic physics actually shift. Those 3 metafunctions compress. They literally collapse into a single, highly dense structural line. It's an incredible phase shift, and it allows us to analyze group structure in one unified operation.
Moving right along to Part 2, anatomy of nominal groups, the particles. Here, we can essentially treat the nominal group as the physical matter or particles of language. Let's look at the experiential structure of this matter. Imagine a narrowing funnel, okay? Or concentric circles locking into place to build a highly specific reality. Take the phrase, "those 2 splendid old electric trains." What we're actually doing here is moving from the most general identifying context right down to the most permanent classification. We start with the Deictic, those, move to the numerative, 2, pass through the epithets, splendid and old, hit the classifier, electric, and finally arrive at the core thing itself, trains. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that we always start at the outer edge of our reality with the Deictic. The Deictic is your anchor. It points directly to the object in the space-time context of the ongoing speech event. It basically says to the listener, hey, first, let me tell you which specific piece of the universe I mean. These determiners act as the initial filter. We have specific deictics, like this or my, which track a highly specific referent in our discourse universe. On the flip side, we have non-specific deictics, like all or some, which introduce a generic member of a class. Either way, the deictic locks the entire nominal group to the speaker's here and now. And this brilliantly illustrates how language separates the objective, defining properties of the universe from our subjective, attitudinal reactions to it. As we move down that funnel, we hit the epithet phase. Notice how old is an experiential epithet. It's an objective property that actually helps define which train we mean. But splendid? That's an interpersonal epithet. It doesn't define the train objectively at all. Instead, it injects the speaker's subjective attitude directly into the particle structure of the noun. Pretty cool, right? All right, Part 3, experiential versus logical structure, the dual nature. This is where the true architectural genius of English really reveals itself. You see, a nominal group isn't just a multivariate configuration, meaning distinct functions like deictic and numerative acting together. It operates simultaneously as a univariate structure. That means it's a recursive, logical chain of submodifiers. It's an elegant mathematical progression where alpha is modified by beta, which is modified by gamma. It's both a set of distinct functional slots and a logical repeating chain of dependency all at once. There's a quote from the linguist M.A.K. Halliday that perfectly captures why this dual nature matters so much. He says that describing a sentence just as a construction of words is rather like describing a house as a construction of bricks, without recognizing the walls and the rooms. You simply cannot ignore the intermediate structural unit of the group, those walls and rooms, if you want to understand the true architecture of language. And this logical architecture allows language to pull off some truly incredible, almost quantum-like behavior. Take a simple measure expression, like a cup of coffee. Here, the logical head of the phrase, cup, is physically split from the experiential thing, coffee. The grammar maps cup as the controller of the phrase's grammar, but coffee is the actual physical participant in the real world. Language is literally mapping 2 different realities onto one phrase, dissociating the logical head from the experiential thing to give us massive descriptive power. Let's pause and pivot for a second. If nominal groups, our nouns, are the dense particles mapping out space and physical matter, how exactly does English map out the dimension of time?
That brings us to part 4, the verbal group engine, the waves of time.
Here, we're shifting our focus from static, physical entities to dynamic, temporal energy. And notice the perfect mirror symmetry with nominal groups here. The verbal group also starts with a deictic anchor, the finite operator, which ties the verb to the present moment through tense or modality. Then we pass through the auxiliaries, and we end with the event, the core experiential meaning. Just as nouns start with those and end with trains, verbs start with the anchor to the speaker now and end with the raw action.
All right, prepare to have your mind blown. Part 5, the recursive tense system, fractal timelines. This is the absolute climax of English linguistic physics.
English does not treat time as a simple, flat line pointing from left to right. Not at all. Instead, it constructs time as fractal loops. We have a primary tense, the alpha, which anchors us in past, present, or future. But then we can stack secondary tenses on top of that, beta, gamma, and so on. Crucially, each secondary tense is not relative to the present moment, it's relative to the time selected in the previous tense. You are literally nesting timelines inside of other timelines.
Picture this as nesting clockworks spinning inside one another. If I say was going to have been working, my alpha tense is past, was. Inside that past, I open a future beta loop, going to. Inside that future loop, I open another past gamma loop, have. And inside that, a present delta loop, been working. It is present and past and future and past. We're mapping deeply complex fractal timelines using nothing but auxiliary verbs. It's brilliant. Now, because this tense system is structurally recursive, you might look at a matrix like this and think it's infinite. Like, could we just keep stacking auxiliary verbs forever? Well, the pure mathematical logic says yes, but the system of English actually applies rigid systemic stop rules that cap this mathematical marvel. Due to hard rules like you cannot repeat the same tense consecutively or present can only occur at the deepest level, the system naturally terminates. Because of this, there are exactly 36 finite non-modal tenses in the English logical engine. Not 37, not 35, exactly 36 specific mathematical permutations of time that the English language can natively compute.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final takeaway. Whether we're looking at the particles of a nominal group or the fractal time waves of a verbal group, the textual meaning is fundamentally embodied in the ordering of the elements. The physical left-to-right placement of these words perfectly recapitulates the meaning incorporated in the structure of the message itself. The initial position anchors us. The final position delivers the core experience. Once you see language this way, not just as a random string of vocabulary, but as a highly structured mathematical architecture mapping space, time, and human attitude, you really can't unsee it. So now that you've seen the hidden physics of English, how will you decode the architecture of your next sentence? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep observing, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next one.